Captain Ryland Drake had seen many strange things in his life among the stars, but nothing prepared him for the grandeur of Baron Zelther's palace. The structure floated above a glowing purple gas giant, shining like a jewel against the dark void. Massive towers spiraled into the sky, and alien banners flapped silently in the low-gravity winds. Ryland had been called here as part of a diplomatic mission, but the tension in the air told him this was no ordinary meeting. Baron Zelther, a tall, thin alien with silver eyes and sharp features, greeted him with a wide, mocking smile. "Captain Drake," the Baron said in a voice smooth as silk but sharp as a blade, "I hear humans are proud, clever, and foolish. Let us see if your cleverness will survive my gift." Ryland raised an eyebrow but remained calm. He had learned long ago that keeping his composure was often more powerful than showing anger or fear. "I am honored, Baron Zelther," he replied. "I will accept anything you choose to offer with respect." The Baron laughed softly, the sound echoing through the grand hall. "Ah, respect. Admirable but misplaced. I have a gift for you, Captain. A challenge, you might say. Behold." Two massive doors at the end of the hall slid open, revealing a small, dimly lit room. In the center sat a figure that seemed fragile and broken. A hush fell over the alien attendants as a young girl stepped forward, her posture weak, her limbs oddly shaped, and her eyes downcast. "This is my daughter Liara," the Baron announced, his voice dripping with mockery. "But do not be fooled, she is imperfect, fragile, weak. Surely you will find her burdensome." The court erupted in soft laughter. Ryland felt the sting of insult, but he looked at Liara carefully. She was small for her age, with translucent skin that shimmered faintly under the palace lights, and eyes that seemed too large for her face. She flinched at the laughter and hid behind a thin wall of shimmering fabric. Ryland stepped forward, slowly and calmly, and knelt down so he was closer to her level. "Hello, Liara," he said softly. "I am Captain Ryland. I know this is strange, but I want to get to know you. Would you like to come with me?" Liara's eyes widened and she hesitated. She had been called weak all her life. No one had ever spoken to her like this before. For a moment the alien court waited, expecting failure, expecting her to cry or collapse. But then she took a small, tentative step forward. "Good," Ryland said, offering his hand gently. "You're safe. Nothing here will hurt you." The Baron's smile faded slightly. This was not the reaction he had expected. His plan had been simple. Give the human a daughter who could not survive the demands of space travel or diplomacy and watch him fail. He thought the girl's so-called weaknesses would be the human's undoing. But Ryland had something the Baron did not understand: patience, care, and belief in potential. The journey back to Ryland's ship was tense. Liara stayed close to him, clutching a small metallic charm that must have been her only comfort. She did not speak much, only peeking occasionally at the stars through the large observation windows. Ryland noticed that she watched the stars differently from most beings. Her eyes seemed to trace their paths as if she could feel their movement. Once aboard his ship, Ryland made her a small room near the bridge, simple but comfortable. Soft lights glowed and warm blankets were laid out. He placed small tools, puzzles, and star charts within her reach. "These are yours," he said. "You can explore them at your own pace. No one will judge you here." For the first time in her life, Liara felt safe. She touched the star charts, tracing the lines with her fingers, whispering numbers and names she had never said aloud. Ryland watched quietly, knowing that trust was built slowly, especially for someone who had been treated like a burden all their life. Over the next hours, he observed her carefully. She moved differently from other children. Her reflexes were quick and her eyes scanned patterns with ease. Though she was small and frail in body, there was a spark in her mind, a hidden strength that none of the aliens had noticed. Ryland smiled to himself. Perhaps this gift was not a gift to mock him at all. It might be the beginning of something extraordinary. Meanwhile, the Baron sent messages back to the palace, expecting ridicule and reports of failure. But Ryland did not react the way the Baron predicted. He treated Liara as an equal, a partner, someone to nurture and guide, not as a burden. And as the ship prepared to leave the gas giant's orbit, Liara dared to look at Ryland with something like hope in her eyes, a feeling she had never known before. The stars stretched endlessly ahead, and Ryland felt a quiet determination settle in his chest. No one had to see her as broken. She would have a chance to prove herself, and he would be there to help her every step of the way. And somewhere in the glittering expanse of the galaxy, a Baron who thought he had won a cruel joke had no idea that his gift might change everything. The ship hummed quietly as it moved through the stars, leaving Baron Zelther's palace far behind. For Liara, the silence was strange but comforting. She sat on the edge of her small bed, holding the metallic charm Rylan had noticed before. It was her only connection to the life she had known, the life where everyone called her weak. But now, for the first time, she felt a small warmth, an unfamiliar feeling that made her nervous and curious at the same time. Rylan entered her room, carrying a small tray of food. "I thought you might be hungry," he said gently, setting it down. "You don't have to eat fast. Take your time." Liara looked at him and nodded, slowly reaching for the tray. She was careful with her movements, as if afraid to make a mistake. Rylan sat across from her, silent for a moment, just watching her. He didn't pressure her because he knew patience would be the first step in earning her trust. "Liara," he said finally, "I want you to know something. You're not broken. You're different, yes, but different is not bad. Every part of you has a purpose, even if others don't see it yet." She blinked, uncertain. No one had ever said anything like that to her. Her life had been full of whispers, laughter, and pity. She didn't know how to respond. Instead, she simply touched the charm and murmured, "I'm not strong." "You are stronger than you think," Rylan replied. "Strength isn't always about muscles or speed. Sometimes it's about your mind, your heart, and your courage. And I can see all of that in you." Liara looked at him, her eyes wide. Something inside her stirred, a tiny spark of hope. For the first time, she didn't feel afraid to make mistakes. She nodded slowly and whispered, I want to try." Rylan smiled. "Good. That's all I ask. Just try." Over the next days, Rylan began teaching her the basics of starship life. He showed her how to read star charts, monitor the ship's systems, and even practice small technical tasks. At first, Liara struggled. Her hands shook, her memory faltered, and she often feared failure. But Rylan never scolded her or showed disappointment. Instead, he guided her gently, explaining every step until she understood. One afternoon, Rylan brought her to the ship's simulator. "This is where we practice navigation," he explained. "You can try plotting courses through the stars. Don't worry about mistakes. Every error is a lesson." Liara hesitated at the controls. She was used to being told she couldn't do things, that she would fail. But Rylan's calm presence made her pause, think, and then act. Slowly, she moved the starship through simulated asteroid fields and nebulae, her eyes wide with concentration. Each successful maneuver made her smile a little more. "You see," Rylan said softly. "You're learning. You're capable." By the end of the week, Liara was no longer afraid to try new things. She even began asking questions, curious about the stars and the machines around her. Her mind, which the Baron had thought weak, was quick and sharp. She could see patterns in star charts and notice changes in the ship's systems faster than most adults. Rylan watched her quietly, a sense of pride swelling in his chest. But it wasn't just skills that were growing, it was trust. Liara began to follow him without hesitation, share her thoughts, and even laugh quietly at some of his jokes. For the first time in her life, she felt seen and valued. Rylan never treated her as a burden. Every day, he reminded her that her life had meaning and that she had gifts the galaxy had yet to see. One evening, they stood together on the observation deck, watching a nebula glow in shades of purple and gold. Liara's hand found Rylan's sleeve, almost unconsciously. "Do you really think I can do something important?" she asked softly. "I know you can," he replied. "I've seen it already. You just have to believe it too." She nodded, staring at the stars. For the first time, she didn't see herself as broken. She saw possibilities, paths she had never imagined. The stars seemed less distant, more like friends waiting to be explored. Meanwhile, the Baron's messages continued to arrive, full of ridicule and expectation of failure. "The human will fail," one message said. "The girl is weak. He cannot succeed." Rylan ignored them. He did not need validation from a man who valued cruelty over truth. Liara's first small successes gave her courage. She solved problems on the ship that even seasoned crew members struggled with. She learned quickly and adapted faster than anyone expected. Each time she succeeded, Rylan praised her, not in a way that inflated her ego, but in a way that made her feel proud of her abilities. By the time they reached the edge of the galactic sector, Liara was no longer the timid, fragile girl the Baron had shown to the court. She moved with purpose, spoke with confidence, and even smiled genuinely. Rylan watched her quietly, knowing that the journey had only begun, but he also knew that she was ready for challenges far greater than any simulator or classroom could provide. Somewhere far behind them, the Baron's plans had already started to fail. He had thought to humiliate Rylan, but instead, the human had unlocked something incredible, the courage and potential of a young alien girl who would one day change the galaxy. And Liara, once called weak and broken, began to see herself in a new light. She was learning, growing, and beginning to understand that being different was not a curse, but a gift. The ship glided quietly through a crowded star system, carrying cargo and passengers between worlds. Liara had grown more confident over the past weeks. She moved through the corridors without hesitation, assisted the crew with minor systems, and even helped plot star routes. But she had never faced a real danger. That was about to change. A sudden alarm rang throughout the ship. Red lights flashed, casting long shadows across the deck. Rylan was already at the control console, his hands moving quickly. "Unidentified vessels approaching fast," he shouted. The scanner showed a small fleet of rogue ships closing in on a nearby human colony. Liara froze for a moment, her heart racing. She had studied starship systems, but she had never faced a live battle. Panic pressed at the edges of her mind. What can I do?" she whispered. Rylan looked at her calmly. "Stay with me. Watch carefully. I need your help." He guided her to the auxiliary control panel, where her unique abilities could connect with the ship's systems. Liara's hands trembled, but she remembered Rylan's lessons: patience, focus, and trust in herself. She placed her fingers on the interface and felt a faint pulse, almost like the ship was alive and responding to her touch. "Good," Rylan said softly. "Just listen to the ship. Feel its needs. You can do this." The rogue fleet fired warning shots. The main shields of the colony began to falter under their attack. Rylan's crew worked frantically, but even they struggled to manage the chaotic energy flows. Liara, however, began to understand the patterns. She moved her hands carefully across the control interface, rerouting power to the shields in real time. She felt the ship's systems respond to her intentions, almost as if the ship itself trusted her. The crew watched in awe. The small, frail alien girl who had been mocked by her own species now moved with a purpose they had never seen. Energy shields flared to life around the colony just as the rogue ships prepared to fire again. Liara's calculations were perfect. She adjusted power levels, anticipating the enemy's moves, keeping the colony safe. Rylan's eyes narrowed with pride. "Liara, you're incredible," he said quietly, but his words were full of admiration. "Keep going. Don't stop." The rogue ships were caught off guard. Their attacks were blocked, their maneuvers countered before they could strike again. Liara's ability to connect with the ship's systems turned the tide. Each movement she made was precise, almost instinctive, guiding the energy and shielding the colony with skill no one thought possible. As the last of the rogue ships turned away in defeat, the crew erupted in cheers. Liara stepped back, breathing hard, her face pale but glowing with exhilaration. She had done it. She had faced real danger and helped save hundreds of lives. Rylan approached her and placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "Do you see now? You're not broken. You're brilliant." Liara's eyes filled with tears, but they were not tears of fear. They were tears of joy, of relief, of pride. For the first time in her life, she felt powerful, capable, and worthy. I did it?" she asked softly. "You did," Rylan said with a warm smile. "And you did it beautifully." Word of Liara's heroism spread quickly through the ship's communication network. Crew members who had doubted her abilities now looked at her with respect. She had proved herself not only to the humans but to herself. She was no longer the timid, fragile girl the Baron had mocked. Over the next few days, the colony sent messages of gratitude. Children waved from the windows and adults thanked her for her courage. Liara began to realize the true power of her abilities. She could make a difference not just for herself but for many others. Even Rylan noticed a change. She moved with confidence, spoke with clarity, and asked questions that showed her mind was sharp and ready. He knew she was ready for more challenges, but he also knew this first victory was important. It had built her courage, her trust, and her understanding of her own potential. Liara found herself staring out of the observation window at the endless stars. She had been afraid once, afraid of failure and ridicule, but that fear had been replaced by something new: hope. She thought of Baron Zelther and the cruel laughter that had greeted her once. It no longer frightened her. She had proved that she was more than anyone believed, more than anyone dared to imagine. At night, when the ship drifted through the quiet of space, Liara practiced with the systems on her own. She experimented, learning new ways to connect, to control, to protect. Each small success built her confidence, and each challenge taught her patience and focus. Rylan watched silently from the doorway, proud but careful not to interfere. He had promised to guide her, not to do for her. And she was learning quickly, faster than he could have hoped. Somewhere far away, Baron Zelther's messages continued, full of insults and mockery. But they no longer mattered. The girl he had tried to humiliate had faced real danger and emerged as a hero. The first triumph had proven something bigger. Strength did not belong only to the strong or the perfect. Strength belonged to those with courage, intelligence, and heart, qualities Liara had in abundance. As the ship moved on toward its next mission, Rylan knew one thing for certain. This was only the beginning. Liara's first triumph had shown the galaxy a spark of something extraordinary. And together they would ignite it into a force no one could ignore. News of Liara's heroism spread faster than anyone expected. The colonies she had helped were talking, and messages arrived from distant worlds praising her courage. Captain Rylan Drake watched quietly as she read letters and listened to calls from people she had never met. Each word made her eyes shine brighter. She felt pride but also something more, a responsibility. "You see," Rylan said one evening as they floated near a bright blue star. "People are starting to understand what I've always known. You're remarkable." Liara looked down at her hands, still trembling slightly. "Do you really think I can do more? Be more?" she asked, her voice soft. "I know you can," Rylan replied. "The galaxy is bigger than any Baron, bigger than anyone who doubted you. And it needs someone like you." At first, the messages were simple. Gratitude, encouragement, small thanks from people in the colonies. But soon reports reached star systems far beyond their sector. Pilots, scientists, and leaders began asking for her guidance. Some wanted to study her abilities, others to work alongside her. She had become a symbol without even trying. A bridge between humans and aliens, a living proof that strength came in many forms. Liara felt the weight of attention for the first time. It was strange, almost frightening, but Rylan stayed by her side. "Don't worry about being perfect," he said. "Just focus on being yourself. The galaxy doesn't need a hero, it needs you." The first real test of her new status came when a planet's communication hub failed. A small fleet of explorers and traders was stranded, unable to send distress signals. Liara stepped forward confidently. She accessed the ship's systems, analyzing the problem, and coordinated a rescue mission that restored the hub within hours. The stranded fleet cheered as the systems came back online, their relief mingled with awe. By now, even the humans who had first doubted her abilities were impressed. Crew members whispered among themselves, noting her intuition, her calm in emergencies, and the way she thought faster than anyone expected. Her weaknesses were gone, or rather transformed into a quiet power that made her a natural leader. Rylan watched her carefully. He had trained her, yes, but he could see that she was beginning to surpass all his lessons. She made decisions instinctively, solved problems creatively, and inspired confidence in everyone around her. The same frail girl Baron Zelther had mocked had become something no one could ignore. Meanwhile, far away, the Baron received reports of Liara's growing fame. He scowled, unable to hide his frustration. The girl he had intended as a joke had become a legend. Messages of congratulations for Rylan were meaningless to him. He could not accept that his cruelty had backfired. Liara did not care about the Baron anymore. She had her own mission now, to use her skills to help others, to explore the stars, and to prove that anyone could rise above the limits others set for them. Her confidence grew with every successful mission, every life saved, every system stabilized. She was no longer a symbol of pity, she was a symbol of hope. During a meeting with several alien delegates, Liara impressed even the most skeptical observers. She spoke clearly and calmly, sharing ideas for trade routes, defense strategies, and scientific exploration. The delegates, who had once dismissed her, now listened intently. Some even bowed slightly, showing respect. Liara smiled politely, keeping her humility, but inside she felt a thrill. She was finally recognized for what she truly was: capable, intelligent, and fearless. At night, she stood with Rylan on the observation deck, looking out at countless stars. "I never imagined I could be known like this," she admitted quietly. "You deserve it," Rylan said simply. "But remember, it's not fame you should chase, it's doing what's right. That is what makes someone legendary." Liara nodded, feeling a sense of purpose she had never known. She thought about the people she had helped, the colonies she had saved, and the crews who now trusted her. She realized her strength was not just her abilities, it was her willingness to act, to care, to face fear and keep moving forward. Messages from grateful worlds kept coming, and with each one, Liara's sense of responsibility deepened. She knew she had to train more, learn more, and explore further. The galaxy was vast, filled with dangers and wonders alike, and she wanted to face them all. Rylan watched her silently, proud but careful not to interfere. She had become more than a student. She was a true partner, someone whose courage and mind could change the course of events. The galaxy was taking notice, and the girl once called broken was now inspiring others across hundreds of systems. And somewhere, far beyond the stars, Baron Zelther's cruel laughter was lost in the void. His joke had failed, and in its place something extraordinary had grown. A human's belief in a child had created a galactic icon, a symbol of hope, courage, and the power of seeing potential where others saw only weakness. Liara smiled, looking at the stars. She knew her journey was just beginning, but for the first time she felt ready. The galaxy was vast, full of challenges and wonders, and she would face them all. And with Rylan by her side, she knew there was nothing she could not achieve. Years had passed since Liara's first mission. The girl once called fragile and broken had become a figure known across countless star systems. Her name traveled faster than any fleet, her deeds celebrated by humans and aliens alike. She was no longer just the daughter of Baron Zelther or the student of Captain Rylan Drake. She was a symbol of courage, intelligence, and hope. Liara stood on the observation deck of her starship, looking out at a new planetary system. Her eyes, once timid and uncertain, now held the steady confidence of someone who had faced danger and won. The stars seemed to welcome her, guiding her forward into missions that tested her mind, her heart, and her courage. Rylan stood beside her, silently watching. He had trained her, yes, but she had grown into someone far beyond what he could have imagined. She made decisions with clarity, solved problems others could not, and inspired people just by being herself. He felt a quiet pride, knowing that his belief in her had made all the difference. "You've come so far," Rylan said softly. "Do you remember when we first left Baron Zelther's palace?" Liara smiled, a little wistfully. "I was so scared. I didn't think I could do anything right." She laughed quietly. "And now, people trust me. They listen to me. I help them." "You help them because you care," Rylan replied. "Not because of fame or recognition. That is what makes you strong." The galaxy, however, was not yet done with Baron Zelther. The Baron had grown bitter over the years, his attempts to mock or belittle Liara forgotten by everyone but him. He sent messages filled with rage and disbelief. "How is this possible?" he demanded. She was weak. She was broken. And yet, humans have turned her into a legend. Liara read the messages calmly. She did not feel fear or anger, only a quiet sense of justice. She had once been afraid, but now she knew her worth. She had faced real dangers, saved countless lives, and proved that being different was not a weakness but a gift. "Do you want to respond?" Rylan asked, curious. Liara shook her head gently. "No. He doesn't matter anymore. The galaxy has already decided." Her work continued. She led missions to dangerous sectors, coordinated trade and communication across systems, and mediated disputes between species. Wherever she went, people looked up to her, not just for her abilities but for her courage, her fairness, and her heart. Children modeled themselves after her, young pilots dreamed of flying beside her, and leaders sought her advice. Liara had also grown close to her own kind. Alien children who had once laughed at her weaknesses now asked her to teach them, and she did so patiently, sharing the lessons Rylan had taught her. To trust yourself, to embrace your strengths, and to never let fear hold you back. One day, a young alien approached her with a nervous smile. "Miss Liara," the child said softly, I want to be brave like you." Liara knelt down, her eyes kind. "Bravery isn't about being fearless," she said. "It's about doing what you know is right even when you're scared. And I believe you can do that too." The child beamed. "I will try." Rylan, watching from a few steps away, felt a swell of pride. Liara had become more than a hero. She was a teacher, a symbol, and a beacon of hope. The galaxy's respect was not something she demanded. It was something she earned through courage and kindness. Meanwhile, Baron Zelther continued to fume, his attempts to diminish her reputation useless. Liara's story had grown beyond his control. The human who had once been mocked for accepting a broken alien girl had helped her rise, and the galaxy had cheered for them both. His cruelty had created an unintended legacy, a legend that shone brighter than his own name ever could. Liara stood once more on the observation deck, the stars stretching endlessly before her. "Thank you," she whispered to Rylan, "for believing in me when no one else did." "You didn't need me to believe in you," he replied with a smile. "You had it all along. I just helped you see it." Liara nodded, feeling the truth in his words. She had faced fear, danger, and doubt. She had risen above expectations and proven that one human's belief could change a life. And, in time, change the galaxy. As the starship moved forward into the unknown, Liara felt ready for whatever challenges awaited. She was no longer fragile, no longer broken. She was a galactic icon, a symbol of hope, and a living proof that courage, care, and determination could overcome any obstacle. And somewhere, far beyond the stars, Baron Zelther's laughter echoed faintly in the void, a reminder that cruelty and mockery could never stop what was truly meant to shine. Liara smiled at the endless sky. The galaxy was hers to explore, to protect, and to inspire. And with Captain Ryland by her side, she knew that together, they would leave a legacy that would last for generations.